Hey, hi, welcome to the channel. It's Jim. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever the time is, wherever you are. Welcome back. Today's video is a chat with one of the subs, one of my longest serving subs. I think you should be getting medals for your time and service with the channel. It's Karl, otherwise known as TwinRavens. Hi, Karl. How you doing?
Howdy. How everybody?
Yay. You've been with the channel a long time, and
Yeah.
I remember you being around maybe about 3.5 or 4 years, almost as soon as I started doing these.
Your first or second video, I remember.
Was it? I can't even remember what that was.
It was either, I want to think it might, the first one I saw was a Tool one. And then I commented the first time when you did Riverside.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Second Life Syndrome.
Second Life Syndrome.
Yeah.
And I think after that, I suggested Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson to you at that time.
Yeah. I was already familiar with Porcupine Tree, and I knew of Steven Wilson, but I hadn't really sort of delved into his catalogue at all. But no, so yeah, we've actually become sort of quite good friends over the time. We sort of chat to each other on WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger all the time. But genuinely, this is like that sort of like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino moment in Heat. Did you see that film Heat? Do you know?
A long time ago. It's a blur. I kind of remember a little bits of it.
But those two big iconic actors, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, had been in films together, but they'd never been on screen at the same time. So
right. I knew the backstory about that. Yeah. That's crazy. That happens a lot. Yeah. Even music, even sometimes people record together, but they're never in the same studio, especially this day of age.
So I think everybody knows where I am. Where are you?
I'm in Oregon in the United States. That's the Pacific Northwest. So I'm about 100 miles south of Portland.
Okay. Yeah, and that's up a bit from California, or is it quite a bit up from California?
Yeah, so closer to Seattle. The states in between Washington and California. Seattle would be a 5-hour drive north of here. Yeah, in the west part of the western United States, we always talk in hours.
Yeah,
it's 3 hours to get here or an hour to get there.
And you don't sort of worry about sort of many hours of journey time. And it's the same in Australia. I know some people over there who sort of don't think anything of sort of going for like a 3-hour drive just to go to the shop to get some milk and eggs to then go back. And I said, what the hell? I think here we wouldn't go anywhere further than sort of like 10 minutes away. It's just sort of, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's just a part of life here. I used to live in Alaska.
Oh, really?
I lived in, I've lived in very rural areas. So, it's kind of shaped my musical, my taste, I guess, because the only access to music I had were my parents, my siblings, and public radio. So I didn't even have proper, pop stations or anything like that to listen to until I was in, an early teen.
What's public radio?
Well, it'd be close to the BBC. Most colleges have a public station that plays mostly jazz, classical music.
Right.
They might have some folk, of course, over time it's changed. Currently, you hear more blues on it.
Yeah.
Gospel music. And so stuff other than what's on the regular pop stations.
Okay.
So I didn't hear. Oh, I was gonna say I never heard a lot of this stuff growing up. That a lot of people just, as far as pop music, I got everything filtered through my older brother and sister. So.
And they then fed it to you. So what's your earliest memory of music that you discovered? That's your music for you, rather than music that was safe that your mum and dad on the radio told you.
So of course, this is, of course, I'm a preacher's kid, so
okay.
I grew up with, hymns and all that stuff. I remember even as a child, when I was a child, I'd be banging along on a piano. I didn't know what I was doing, but I've always been that way. Art and music are kind of my thing. I'm more artistic than analytical.
Yeah.
But, so we always had, my dad always even though he was older, he always had a contemporary ear. He was in the early 70s. He was listening to Simon and Garfunkel and Three Dog Night and the Moody Blues and the Bee Gees from back then.
Yeah.
So which for that time he was probably almost 40, but still listening to stuff like that. But probably
almost from 40 and still listening to some. How dare he?
In those days, that was uncommon,
Yeah.
Sure, but I think the first band for me, or the music that I was really into, was Elton John.
Oh,
my sister listened to Elton John all the time when it first came. I don't even remember the name of the album. It's the one where he's sitting he has the cane and he's sitting next to the piano, has the big white glasses on.
I don't know. I'm afraid I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of Elton John now, but I just at that time was fascinated by it. And then quickly graduated. I think my first album, I've mentioned this before. I think my first album I ever purchased was Kiss Destroyer, and I loved that album. I thought it was cool. I loved comic books, and quickly outgrew Kiss. But I mean, for a couple of years there, they were my band.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then graduated to Van Halen. But during all these times, that was kind of the period where we moved out of the more rural parts of the Northwest. We moved into Central Washington, and suddenly I had access to stuff out of Seattle, music channels, kids that were coming back and forth from the universities there. My brother, he would do things. He was a high school kid at the time. So, I was being introduced to punk rock and, the first British the second British New Wave,
yes.
All that stuff that was coming over in the late 80s. So that really, influenced me. I can still remember like the first time I heard things like Salisbury Hill, or the first time I heard the Police, I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like it. So, I didn't know if it was cool or not. I just liked it. So I've always been that way. Music, there's two categories of music for me: what I like and what I don't like.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I hate labels.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's the same. Actually, no, they're not. Not everyone is the same. Some people are so entrenched into a specific scene or a genre, they can't see past their blinkers and to listen to anything else.
I've more than once gotten into a little online argument over what prog is. My stance is there is no definition, and they're like, no, it's got to be technical. It's got to have no soul, no jazz, no R&B. Can't have anything like that in it. Has to be classical based. I'm just like, boy, don't talk to Pink Floyd about it. Because I think David Gilmour would have something to argue with you about.
Well, but, isn't it? I don't know if this is entirely true, but isn't it right that when a lot of this amazing music from the early 70s was being made, that there wasn't such a thing as prog. It was just rock music, and they were all trying to sort of just do the best they could and do amazing things and be experimental and interesting. The term prog wasn't even something that would meant anything to any of them. So it's a label which has come along later. Is that right?
I think so. I think I had a brief stint in music school, and I remember when we were looking back at, I took a music history class. So I'm sure with your sister, you've heard a lot of this kind of stuff, but everything's by period. I mean, there's some, you can get into a little more specific genres and periods, but there's the 60s, there's the 70s, there's the 80s, and each decade kind of calls back here and there to the decade before, or it's a retaliation against it. But when you talk to the artists, I don't, Steven Wilson, here's a great example. He's a hero of mine. One of his favorite artists, or he says his favorite artist, is Prince. Nothing he does sounds like Prince.
No,
not really. But I mean, it says something. It's like he's not worried about. He just does what he does.
Well, I think there's a. I'm hoping this doesn't sound sort of patronising or sort of superior in any sort of way, because it's not meant to be. But I think there's a difference between people who are musicians and people that are listeners to music, and that musicians will absolutely try to absorb and listen to anything and everything they can, because there could be something amazing happen that will inspire them to do something really interesting. So, like you're talking about, Stephen Wilson, I know he's a huge fan of all this 70s, the prog and the rock, and so on and so forth. But also, he's a massive fan of disco. He loves all the ABBA stuff and all the really shiny pop music as well. And as you say, Prince and Elton John and all this stuff. So it's about sort of getting at influences everywhere and inspiration, and molding it, and presenting it in a way that is coherent to yourself, and true to yourself. So absolutely, that's completely valid and right.
Yeah, that's funny. And at the same time he does it, he still can, he's a magpie. I think every good artist is a magpie. I mean, you listen to the late 90s, Porcupine Tree albums, you clearly can hear Radiohead, but it still sounds like Porcupine Tree. I mean, you can hear little bits and pieces, and it's like, I think a good artist does that. And I don't care what medium you're working in, whether it's painting or, if you're a landscaper. I mean, you're getting influences from whatever it is you see or are exposed to. I mean, music, I've always thought of music different from a lot of the other art forms, and that is very fluid. You'll never hear, well, I mean, with some exceptions. I mean, with classical music, you tend to, you have a script you try to stick to, but boy, I mean, you can hear five different orchestras do the same piece. It'll sound different if you know what you're listening to.
Yeah, it totally will. And I've had this conversation with my sister as well, about every performance of a piece of music, although it's the same notes and they're reading the same sheet music. Every single performance will be different. Every recording will be different, because the conductor they're not following a metronome. They're following, there's not a sort of a BPM that at the beginning of the piece that says it's this speed. It says it's allegro, or it's largo, or it's slow or fast. And what's slow and fast to you on that day is different, going to be different from someone else's slow or fast on that day. And what's loud and what's quiet is going to be different for every other people. And how many people are in the orchestra on that day, or it's just so many variables. And exactly what you're saying is every single performance is going to be different. And I find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to go to a concert, like say if a performer was in your town for more than one day, 1 week, or from one day to the next night, and you'll hear completely different. It's like, man, last night that song had all this energy. The next night it was like a little flat. But then maybe something else fine. It's just, you never know what you're going to get. And I always think that one thing with music is it's going to be forever fluid.
It's a living thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It just continues to breathe. Unlike, I mean, a painting is a snapshot. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just that's the nature of that medium.
And it's set. The difference of, apart from, you're talking about live music, recorded music obviously is different, because once it is recorded and it's set in stone, that is how it sounds. But as long as you're listening to it on the same system every single time, then it's going to sound the same. But if you then start listening to it in other places, like listening to the same record on CD in the car than you do on an LP on the turntable, or through your phone on headphones when you're out for a run, each time that's going to sound a little bit different. But that's about the acoustics of how you're listening to it rather than the performance itself.
I still songs that I think I know, once in a while, I didn't notice that little cymbal splash there, or it's like, or something, I think I've always thought the bass line went a certain way, and then I'll be paying attention to it. Like, wait a second, that he can't play that in first position. That's got to be like in second position, or else he's got fingers that long. It's just like I hadn't even paid attention to it because I'm listening to the guitar part or whatever, or singing along. Yeah. It's always fun to kind of discover those things. It's a puzzle.
Yeah, totally. Not to sort of draw attention to it particularly, but I've got a little new little preamp which is attached for my my turntable, and I'm hearing things now on records that I've heard loads of times before, and I'm hearing, like you're saying, details. I never heard that before. It's like listening to this music all again for the first time. So I might be able to restart the channel from scratch, go back 4 years, and start listening to every single thing again. And I'll be literally listening to every single song for the first time again. It's amazing. It's so interesting.
Wouldn't it be great to just be paid to listen to music?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like too little time. I hate. I'm not a. I don't like to listen to lists. I like to listen to albums, you know, and you don't always have the luxury to do so. I mean, I'll sometimes hold off, you know, like I finally listened to the new Tears for Fears today.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, it is good. I mean, for what it is, you know, I enjoy it. I mean, is it songs from the Big Chair or, you know,
Seeds of Love?
It's not, Seeds of Love. It's maybe I wouldn't put it at that level, but I think, you know, you look at these guys. I mean, they're 60 plus. And they still can put out solid material, and they have some good songs on it, you know. So I don't think anybody be disappointed by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I've not heard it yet, but it's another one that's on the hit list at some point to get round to.
Yeah,
man alive, I've got so much to listen to at the minute. It's untrue.
No, I haven't helped bear you in any of that. I can't even.
No, you don't send me Spotify listens sort of on a daily basis at all, do you?
Oh my goodness!
But I tell you what, though, you have led me to some amazing discoveries. So thank you very much for that. It's incredible. In many ways, it really doesn't matter what the medium is that you're listening on. You're not a vinyl guy at all. I think probably you were in the past, but you've stripped all your life back and you've gone quite minimal. If it can't fit in your pocket on your phone, then it's you're not going to listen to it. Is that about right? Would you say?
Yeah. Well, you know, as a kid growing up, I didn't have access to a lot of that stuff. When I finally did get access to vinyl, was right. You know, probably around 1978 or so. You know, that was when I was actually around stores where you could find something other than just the top 20.
Yeah.
You know, I know it sounds like I was in the middle of nowhere, but I really was. I mean, the town I lived in was 400 people, you know, and when I lived in Alaska, we lived on an island. So there really wasn't anything. But, you know, that was right when cassettes were starting to take off. You know, there was some of that 8-track crap that was around, but, you know, music was kind of changing at the time as far as how it was being sold.
Yeah.
So really by the 80s, I was getting lots of cassettes, you know, and of course we were all trading, you know, I'd buy something and we dub it off you know, swap with my buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have hundreds, some of them not labeled. I mean, every so often I'll hear a song and I'm like, I used to have that. I'm not sure who it is. You know?
I'm exactly the same. I mean, it's exactly the same in the 80s. Everyone had tapes, cassettes, and we all had tape to tape machines. So there's like, I had a little Hitachi thing. It was about this big and it had 2 cassette bits next to each other. One was recording, one was playing. And you could, you'd borrow tapes off each other and swap them around at school. And you're right. I had hundreds of the things. And you're right, they didn't have labels on it, so I can't remember what they are. And even now, exactly what you just said, I'll hear something, so I have no idea what that was. Somebody...
Shazam. The Shazam app. I use that thing all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'll hear a song, like, I know that song, and I'll Shazam it, you know, I'm like, there it is.
And does that actually work? Spotify.
Pardon me?
That actually works, does it, Shazam? I thought it was a little bit of a... Okay. How cool.
Yeah, so it's really simple. It's a simple little app, and you go in on it, you hit the button and let it listen, and it's fast. I mean, even some obscure stuff. I mean, I'm surprised at some of the things. It's picking up stuff that's not even on Spotify. I mean, that's pretty good. If you know, bands aren't even on Spotify.
Yeah.
And they're still recognizing them, you know. So
I did a live stream 2 weeks ago, week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and someone answered a question about a song that used to be on Top of the Pops. It was a program that used to be on in the UK. A song called Yellow Pearl by Phil Lynott. And that's a song I knew so well back at the time, but I had no idea who it was by or what the song was called. And he just said, well, you remember that song? I said, oh, thank you. It's absolutely sort of like the clouds are parting, this sort of beam of light came down, and so yes, You have no idea how long I've been wanting to know what that song was.
Oh yeah,
one of those moments.
I get that.
Yeah,
I get it. I've been through that a lot, so like I said, it nowadays, like I said, kids don't know what we went through. I remember, sitting by the radio waiting to hit record for when that song came on.
Yeah. I used to do that all the time. We had the top 40 was played on a Sunday afternoon. And this was sort of when I was starting to get into Iron Maiden and Def Leppard and whoever else it would have been at the time. And I recorded the whole of the top 40 and ended up sort of doing a tape to tape and recording the bits I wanted, and then sort of using that tape to then record it again the next week, and sort of building up little mini compilation albums like that.
The mixtape.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? Mixtapes.
Oh yeah, God, I had hundreds of those. But mine were always a little odd compared to my buddies. They'd always have like 5 bands. It'd be AC/DC, Metallica or Quiet Riot or some hair band, which I didn't care for. And mine would always be the whole gambit. I get a lot of funny looks. It's like, well, that song's on that mixtape. It's like the 4th one in. And they like, well, what was that other crap? It's like, well, it was Oingo Boingo, The Fix. It was U2 or whatever it was.
I did one. I remember for a friend's party, and it was. Because he sort of thought, say, "Oh, Jim, you like music? Can you do a tape for us?" I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And it was such a disappointment to everybody there. But it was. I had some Frank Zappa on there. It had Iggy Pop. It had probably some Iron Maiden, some Rush, and some Queen, and Talking Heads, David. I know, just all sorts of loads of different stuff. And it was not.
I like it.
It was not cohesive or coherent at all, but I loved it. But everyone else, they could maybe dance to one song, but then something else goes, "What the hell is this?" I said, well, "It's awesome. It's music." I said, "It's not party music." Well, not your party. No, okay.
Come on.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah. That I get that experience at work. We, when I go to work in the morning at 2:30 is when I start.
I know, early doors, really early doors.
And we on the dock we have, Bluetooth speakers set up, and for a while there it was always I'd make a playlist for work, because I knew they'd want to listen to my stuff,
Yeah.
And even still, they're just like, "What is this?" I'm like, we got guys that are from 25 to my age, It's like I gotta cover all the bases. I mean, I even had Biggie on there. I'm Dr. Dre. I had everything, but I still get people looking at me sideways, like, "What the hell is that crap?" It's like,
oh really?
Yeah. You try to accommodate people, and they still are disappointed. What do you do?
What can you do?
You got to be you. You got to be you.
You got to be true.
I always tell them I love my music more than you love yours.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Music's been massively important to you through your life, hasn't it? It's sort of helped you. You talked about you had a big operation a few years ago. On your back.
Yep, I had spinal fusion surgery. I had this was kind of when I started. That's when I found the reaction channels. I was home for 5 months, and was doing rehab every day. And my day was basically get up, go to the gym, lifting weights, then physical therapy, then go to my physical therapist, and then I had to work 5 to 8 miles of walking in every day, and I had to do that for 5 months. So I had lots of spare time, either listening while I was walking, or sitting around in between when I had to get up and go do something. I think my first channel was probably Ruben Weiss. I don't know if you've ever heard or seen
Ruben. Yeah, Ruben the Dutchman.
Yep, the Dutchman.
Hello, my friends. Yes, I know. Yeah. I've watched quite a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, he was probably the first one I saw. Really, you weren't very far behind there. Maybe within a few months. Because that was 2017, so that was 2018.
I started up at the beginning of 2018.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was the springtime, so it was right really early. So, boy, that you have a lot of time in your head, and you know, I remember, you know, there were several albums that just kind of just were my go-tos, especially early on. I didn't know if I'd have to retire. And I mean, I could have financially. I'd have had to tweak some things, and you know, things are tougher in the States because we don't have, and we have to pay for our own insurance here.
Yeah.
So, which is expensive, and so I at the time still had a house payment. I could have done some things, manipulated some stuff, you know. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, man, is this surgery going to work? Am I going to be able to walk? Will I have nerve damage? I had all this stuff going through my head all the time, and so when I'd be on my walks, the headphones would go on, and you know, I would like Anathema. I listened to a lot of Anathema during that time, especially the "We're Here Because We're Here" album. That one deserves a listen to for you. I know you probably don't have it on vinyl, but that's
yes, I do.
You do.
I do.
That is word.
Hold on, it's here somewhere. Is this Anathema? Is this the one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you listened to it yet?
I've listened to some of it. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but
I know you've done Thin Air because
yeah. Yep. But I've got to do a proper listen to it. So I haven't done yet. No. That
one's worthy. But I mean, I listened to a lot of stuff. I mean, I listened to, you know, the War on Drugs is another group that I really like. That you know, that I was listening to a lot of that time. It's just, you know, I was listening to a lot of old Rush, you know. And then at the gym, I'd be listening to Gojira, you know. I mean, I went all the way, you know, might be Opeth, you know. I mean, I listened to a lot of stuff. I mean, there's not many genres that I'm not, you know, I don't have something that I like, you know, even country. You know, I like, you know, the Bakersfield sound. I love the old honky tonk stuff.
Okay.
But there's a part of that's nostalgia for me. Not that I listened to it as a kid.
Yeah.
But that's the soundtrack of my childhood, living in rural Idaho. I mean, we had actual cowboys. We had, you know, I've been sitting there watching a guy on horseback chasing a horse down the main street of town with the lasso in the air and everything. I mean, I've seen that happen.
Wow.
You know, I mean, so summer nights when I was a kid in a town of 400, you know, we lived in it's a little canyon. There's 4 bars in this town of 400 people, and they're all blaring honky tonk music into the night on a Saturday night. So I could hear that, you know.
Yeah.
Well, little did I know that would stick with me later in life. And I'm like, yeah, Johnny Cash, I could listen to some of that. Or, you know, like, you know, newer artists who follow that sound like Dwight Yoakam. I like that. I have no desire to listen to, you know, bro country or crossover pop country. That stuff is just like, you know,
that's sort of almost not manufactured, but it's a very different sort of sound. It's very different from the honest.
It doesn't have anything on it.
Johnny Cash was a very, very unique performer. He's actually really dark and quite a sort of a disturbed person, wasn't he? In many ways.
Yeah.
And he had his demons. And you can certainly hear that in a lot of the music that he performed. And actually, as he got older and older, his voice became more unique in a way. It's just he became even more Johnny Cash than he was when he was younger. It's a strange thing.
Oh yeah,
really strange thing. So there's the American recordings, and when he was doing all those covers, like the Sting cover that Sting song, didn't he? I Hung My Head. Stuff like that. Oh man, that's so dark.
You know,
and Hurt, the Nine Inch Nails cover. It's just
he was busy all the way to the end. You know.
Yeah.
It's funny about. I mean, this is a common theme with a lot of artists. You know, what was it? I heard it was Bono. I think said that, you know, a lot of musicians and artists are trying to fill a hole. You know, and there's something in them that's empty, and they're trying to fill it. You know, I mean, for him, he's always referencing back to the death of his mother. You know,
yeah.
You know, he has a lyric in a song off of one of his albums, you know, God-Shaped Hole. You know, that's kind of what he's referencing. He's trying to fill that. You know, like for him being on stage, does that. I think that, you know, you got to wonder. You know, there's a lot of people in this world who are talented beyond belief, and now we got YouTube. You can see it. Only some of them ever get to rise. You know, I mean, there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of, you know, ambition. But I think, you know, what makes, you know, some people that have that drive in them, they're so I don't know, they're searching, I guess, you know. I mean, I'm a musician. I mean, I can play a lot of the stuff I hear. I'm not saying I'm as creative or as talented as these people, but you know, I'm not the same as these guys. It's like I'm selling everything I have and moving to LA,
Yeah.
and just gonna go for it. I was never that guy.
No.
You know, they're on a different level. You know,
they are, and even then, there are people that on that level who risk everything and put all their money into it and everything I've ever owned into doing the music and still don't get anywhere. And that's sort of absolutely heartbreaking. And there is a real sort of roll of the dice, isn't there? It is purely down to chance. Who happens to see you one night playing in a small bar somewhere? So, hey, I've got to sign you, or I've got to try and I want to manage you, or I'm going to give you a show which is even bigger than this. And it's just luck that person happened to be in there that night. And
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and then you see, and even now it's almost the opposite. You're in the danger of being just anonymous forever, because there's such a plethora of artists out there who now have access. They can put it on YouTube, they can put it on Spotify, they can put it on Bandcamp, you know. I mean, Amy or Dorval, you know, thank God she's, you know, Devin Townsend has highlighted her, but even with that, she's still, I don't think, I mean, she deserves a lot more
I agree,
exposure than she's had, but you know, she just hasn't been able to find that break, you know.
Yeah, totally. I don't know, this isn't really relevant, but I was going to say, just going back to some of these you're saying about that they're driven to do this, or they trying to fill a hole. I don't think there may be some people who are motivated because they want to be successful and want to have a huge career doing it. But I think most musicians, I don't know where we've gone off topic, but most musicians do it because it's a need that they just have to do. And
that's more than what I meant.
And being successful and sort of being a superstar or whatever is secondary to it. That's not the objective. I mean, that it is in things like when you got Britain's Got Talent, or I don't know if you got the same sort of thing in America, these talent shows where people go on, the prime objective for them is to be famous. It's not about they have a desire. They go on there and they're in front of the camera. So why are you going to do that? Oh, it's a dream come true, Simon. All my life, I just wanted to sing. I said, no, you haven't. You just wanted to come on here and be famous. Come on. If you want to do that, you'd have been working in bars, singing your heart out for the last 10 or 15 years. And you haven't. You've been singing in your bathroom and you got, oh, there's an audition going on. I'll go and do that. It's awful because I'm sounding really, really patronizing, and I don't want to be.
You know, if that's your dream, more power to you if that's your dream.
Yeah.
You're right. I think that's a good distinction to make. That, I mean, when I said that, you know, and I did say, you know, ambition might be one of those drives, but I think there are some people that they just have to create, you know, they have to get this music out. They have to, I mean, starving artists. I mean, some people I have friends who are artists and they're just consumed by it. They, they barely can hold down a job. They're so consumed by it. They can't wait to get done. And they've been that, I mean, now they're 50, you know, and, unfortunately where I live, you know, there's not, you know, there's still, you know, I mean, they've never been able to hold down a job, and there's not a safety net for them as they get older. No. You know, I have family who live in Europe, and we've had these conversations. That's one of those differences between living in the United States and other places. Yes, there's opportunities here, but there's no safety net. If I want to do a job that doesn't pay well, I still have to be concerned about my health.
Yeah.
At least we have my friends and my family in Europe. You know, they can say, you know, well, I've decided that this is enough money to make, but I won't have to worry about if I get sick or going bankrupt from that or whatever. I know we're getting way off topic, but I think that also makes a difference in how, you know, what people pursue. You know, I mean, I think in the United States, there's a lot of people who would pursue careers that are more creative, or in music, or in jazz, or in whatever the genre is.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of musicians that are working, doing music they don't want to do, but that's where the paycheck is.
Yeah.
They're gifted jazz players. They're gifted, you know, or, you know, whatever. but you're going to have to play country, or you're going to have to play blues if you're going to get that bar gig. And that's the only ones in town paying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's,
I know we're way off. We've gone all around.
We're all over the place. All over the place. It's good
though. But I think, I think it's an interest. We often listen to a lot of the music. I always am interested in, because I'm a musician. I'm not a professional or anything, but I'm always interested in what drives them, or what their motivations are. I don't mean financially or anything like that, but what got them, in that mindset or in that headspace, because sometimes they just walk into a studio and they just go at it, but sometimes they have a purpose, So I find that whole process interesting as a listener, as a Rush fan, for example. I started listening to Rush. My first album was 1978, so that would have been Hemispheres.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And moving forward, everything after that, and you hear those transitions. They clearly had an idea of what they wanted to do, moving from that album to, by the time you get to Moving Pictures, it's like, okay, we're going to go to a shorter songs. We want to have, we want to get to the point a lot quicker and make our point faster. They have a different drive and different set of influences, but clearly some musicians don't do that at all. And I think if you're a fan, some people hate that. They can't sit through. They're wondering how come Steven Wilson can't do Hand Cannot Erase Again. Why did he do Personal Shopper? It's like they're missing the point.
I've found that quite a lot. You're probably aware that I've been sort of doing this journey going through the Yes discography.
Yep.
And that's been super interesting, and I'm serious. I'm so enjoying every record I'm hearing from them. I've just got up to Drama, and it's amazing record. It's an absolutely incredible record. And there's
on that one,
and John Anderson's not singing, and Rick Wakeman's gone as well. So we've got two new people coming to the band, doing the singing and the keyboards. And there are a lot of fans who of Yes who just cannot accept that this is Yes anymore, or can't. It's very strange. It's I absolutely respect people's opinion about it, but I find it. I suppose because I haven't been invested in this band since they started and haven't followed their career through. I've come into it sort of much later and going back through the discography and listening to it out of interest and really enjoying it. So I suppose actually had I been a fan and followed through their career, I might have been heartbroken that, oh my God, what have they done? This is so wrong. But for me, I think Drama just sounds incredible. It's such an energetic and they sound so motivated and just full of ideas and energy that was missing or had started to go off the boil a bit, I suppose, with Tornado. And it just feels like a completely re-energized and an exciting band, which is just so much fun and interesting.
Yeah, Yes is an interesting. That's an interesting kind of the. It's funny we bring up Yes and Rush. Rush, you have all that continuity, and still have all that change. Yes has had all this, revolving door of members, other than Chris Squire. But it's so rare for a band to have that longevity of time to go through that process. I mean, the Beatles did everything in 6 years?
Yeah.
Everything. And they were done, When you think about that, 6 years ago was when you just barely started your channel. That was most of the Beatles' career, It's interesting to have I guess that's something that comes with age too, to be able to go back and kind of relive all this stuff, you just wait till you get to the 80s. I remember, I grew up when I had moved to Washington, the rock stations there played a lot of Yes. I heard, Starship Trooper and Roundabout and all the major early hits. That was just regular radio stuff. Same with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all that stuff was all the time. We heard those. And then when 90125 come out, I was like, what the heck? This doesn't even sound the same, but I love that album. I still have arguments with, other people who are Yes fans. Are like, I can't listen to any of that stuff. I'm like, it's a great album. When you listen to it today, it still sounds good. It doesn't sound that dated. There's maybe some of the production on drums and things like that. The 80s just have that sound, but
they do. Yeah.
The 70s has their sound. The 90s definitely has their sound. Like the absence of bass, for instance.
I have to. I really struggled with that a little bit. Well, not struggled with it, but I find it very surprising that Radiohead, their records don't have any low end at all. Not a lot. It's really so. He's playing a kick drum, and the bass guitar is there, but it's just sort of all the low ends out. It's all just sort of mid to high frequencies in there. It's really strange. A really strange mix.
I think it's just the aesthetics of the time. Yeah. You start listening to these decades. What having different areas to listen to. What was the emphasis? The 80s clearly wanted heavy kick drum. They liked that. I think that was maybe that like for pop music, you had that disco influence. They really wanted to keep that.
Yeah.
And you hear it in the drum, but of course the rest of the drums kind of suffered for it.
It's the gated snare drum, isn't it? Which is the really artificial, and it just cuts off. There's no sort of natural reverberation at all, and it's But then the 90s was the antithesis to that. They wanted everything went to loud, splashy cymbals and kind of that 70s. Not even that, not 70s pop, but kind of the, I don't know. I guess like the Neil Young sound. Everything was more stripped down, and it sounded like it was recorded in a big barn somewhere. Which I'm as a bass player, I'm fussy about drums too. We all have I hate splash, loud splash reverberating cymbals. I like Gavin Harrison and Neil Peart. Or Stuart Copeland. It's like, I want that splash when it's there to make it impact. I hate just being a wash in it, Yeah.
But then in the 90s, that was a thing, it's like you had a lot of that going on. Of course, part of that I think was shoegaze influence. Everything was a wash of sound.
Yeah.
There are some bands that, even though I know they're really good and they got good songs, I'll listen to their drum production. I'm just like, of course, I can't hear the bass because it's all fuzzy, and then the drums are just like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be interesting to go back for somebody to remix those old records. Presumably the master, or not the masters, the tracking tapes would not have had any effect on it. You could take all the effects off and just remix it for a modern sound. It'd be great.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some artists that wish they could, because if you listen, especially when you hear what they do live. There are some bands that are just better live.
They must be able to do that actually from the 90s going forward. It was almost exclusively digital recording, so it'd all be in Pro Tools or in or Logic or whatever it was that had been used, but most probably Pro Tools, and it's all there as files, so it must be easy to do. Not easy, but it's easy for someone who knows what they're doing to do, I'd have thought.
Well, yeah, it could be that maybe I don't know. I was listening to an interview with Joni Mitchell this morning, actually, and they were asking her about that. It's like she never listens to her music. Once she's done with it, she'll never listen to it again, other than when she's performing it. And because whenever she does, it's like, well, why did I do this? Or why didn't I put that there? You just start picking it apart. And it's like, I guess that's where the nice thing of being a living, breathing, ongoing thing is like, okay, well, I didn't do that in the recording, but now I can put that part in now.
Yeah.
In the live, I think that's funny. You're doing the Grateful Dead. I live in Grateful Dead country. The West Coast of the United States is like the homeland.
Okay.
So I grew up surrounded by tie-dye hippies and the Grateful Dead. And, they would come to Eugene and play at our local stadium every year. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, they spent the band would actually spend time in our community. And I've got friends that they've got hundreds of pirated recordings, and it's like some of them. I mean, some of them, like it's the same 30 songs, and they've got 50 versions of each one. But of course, the reason they have all that, they're all different.
Yeah.
You listen to Dark Star in 1972, and it's completely different than the 1969 recording, but they never repeat themselves, because it might be 18 minutes one night, it might be 25 minutes or 30 minutes another night. Yeah, they get that long on their jams.
Wow.
Myself, I'm never musically, I have a great amount of respect for the Grateful Dead, but I've never been able to get past their vocals. That's just me. I mean, and I relate, because some people can't stand Rush because they can't get past Geddy Lee's vocals. I understand. Myself, I think they're great.
Well, it's his natural voice. He can't help it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he sings in key. He's not out of. It's just slightly high pitched.
Some people like it and some people don't.
No.
I've never had a problem with it.
I think if I'm honest and trying to remember being 12 or 13 when I first heard Rush, I thought, wow, I thought that's unusual. But this sounds amazing. And sort of after sort of like 15 minutes, I didn't even notice it, and then that was it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, boy. I mean, I still remember the first time I heard Tom Sawyer. After having heard, after hearing, Spirit of Radio and Free Will, and like, okay, where are they going to go next? And then oh my God. I mean, I couldn't wait to hear the rest of the song, where I'm only 30 seconds into it.
Yeah.
It just was fantastic. I mean, I love Rush, but I can, it still gives you goosebumps. We had a chat about that recently. I remember it must have been a month or so ago. I can't remember what song we were talking about, how some songs will still grab you when you hear them.
For me, it's always 2112. That whole side of that album, 2112, just a masterpiece. But as you say, Tom Sawyer is incredible, and Spirit of Radio, and YYZ, as you say, sorry, Xanadu, and yes, I mean there's so many of these big iconic.
Camera Eye. That's the song on that album that for me just gives me shivers still. Is the Camera Eye.
Yeah.
It was never a big hit, but it's one of those deep tracks, that as people like to call it. I don't think any Rush fan would call that a deep track. It's just a track.
It's just a track, yeah. I probably need to do some more. I probably need to do some more Rush on the channel. I haven't done that for a long time. But
you can't do too much. I mean, yeah. That's funny about reaction channels. I was thinking about this today because I was trying to think back of when I started. I thought that might be a question that come up. I had to really think about when was my first one. But one of the things in the last few years, I'll kind of be watching is like, a new channel pop up. I'll kind of, maybe I'm a little judgy. What are they listening to first? And it's always you kind of always see a similar progression in a lot of these bands. Like as soon as the Tool fans come in, it's over.
Yeah,
it's going to be like Tool. Or
I tried not to. I mean, I really wanted to listen to Tool, but I very, very deliberately. And it's the same with Yes, and it's the same with anything else, or Jethro Tull. I have to try and pace it out. I can't just sort of do it wall to wall to wall of the same thing, because it becomes boring for a lot of people who are not into that, and it then becomes almost like homework for me rather than being a fun thing as well. So I'm in danger of then not enjoying what I'm doing, and I don't want to get into that situation. And
I think that's a challenge for reactors, because if they're in it, that's one of the reasons you're my favorite channel.
Oh, you say the nicest things.
No, it's true. You are my favorite channel, and we are pretty simpatico on most of the music that you're listening to. I mean, it's like, some things you'll like more than me, and there's things I like more than you, I'm sure, but we're similar age. That helps. Same influences, Iron Maiden. But
it always comes back down to Iron Maiden, doesn't it?
Yeah, but different enough that I grew up in hearing different things than you did. It had radio play where I'm at. But I think for a lot of these other channels, especially if they're, like I said, heaven forbid they play Bandmate or something, and it's like 5,000 people dump into their channel. It's like, then they're trying, and I think it's a trap they get into. They're trying to keep people happy.
Yeah.
Fan bases are so rabid. I love Tool, don't get me wrong. But I mean, you'll see if you watch these newer YouTube reactors, they get kind of shanghaied by a fan base or a couple fan bases, and you can't hardly get away. And I'm sure you've experienced that. Suddenly it's like, whoa. It's like
I did. Well, I did. Again, very early on. It wasn't Bandmate. It was Babymetal. I did. I have one or two songs from them, and I can't do this, and this is getting ridiculous. There's like 10,000 views within a day of one song. I'm lucky to get sort of 500-600 views now. I mean, no, I'm getting a bit more now, but I'm not in it for the views, and I'm not in it to sort of have this huge channel. And it's I have to be very careful. I don't want to just. I'm not trying to make a living from it. Like, I guess some people are trying to do that to make a living from what they're doing. I don't know, but I suppose it's a different motivation. It's about discovering and listening to music and sharing it, and the community. The community has become so important. I never expected that. I really didn't expect that to happen.
Well, isn't that how relationships start? A shared interest, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only difference is we aren't at the pub down the street because the street's way too long between our houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
We couldn't have this conversation 20 years ago.
No.
So it's kind of like we were joking about this morning. I mean, the world's getting smaller in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I remember, WhatsApp. Thank God for that. I mean, I can keep track of people in Australia and everywhere else. That was an expensive phone call. In 2000.
Totally. Oh my God! Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you don't even think about it. This would have been astronomical doing this as well, like video call across the Atlantic.
Yeah, just on the internet now, no biggie. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say is like one of the things that. In regard to your channel, I mean, I love like what you've been doing now is great because I think there's a lot of people that haven't either had access or never had a reason to check out some of the bands you play, especially when these older stuff, I think there's a lot of younger people, they don't even know where the influences are coming from. I mean, if you know Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree, they've never heard Yes. And you probably have run into some of that in the comment section.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that's great. But at the same time, you also get it coming back the other way. Oh, if you like that, here's these other bands we're aware of. And as an old geezer like me, I'm not always having my finger on the pulse anymore. It's hard to do. I mean, I work 55 hours a week. It's hard to keep up. So I always enjoy getting the new stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm going to check that out. You one of the albums you pulled up today, was the second or third album. I never heard of the band. James.
Barclay James Harvest.
Never heard of them.
No.
Never heard of that band. Don't know who they are. Know nothing about them.
Well, wait for it because it will come on the channel at some point, or we'll go and find it yourself in the meantime. But that I'm going to be listening to those. I'll do them rotation slowly. Get to those. Yeah.
What was the one you had? Was a couple weeks ago we were talking about War of the Worlds.
Oh yeah.
I missed it. I completely missed that.
Really?
Nope, never heard it. I popped it in for a bit. I haven't had a chance to sit down to hear the whole thing, and nothing in that I listened to in a cursory listen was familiar.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean,
Jeff Wayne's musical War of the Worlds is absolutely just one of the most iconic albums of all time. It's almost, it's amazing.
It was funny because so you had brought that up, and I just heard it on Steven Wilson and Tim Bonessa's podcast.
Yeah.
The album years. I mean, they were just talking about it, and I kind of like remembered the name, but I didn't know who it was. And then you bring it up.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'm just like, well, I'm going to have to check it out now. But of course, you mentioned you may play it on the channel, so I was kind of, I'll wait.
I'll actually, you know what? I will do that. I'm going to do that as a.
Okay, I'm going to hold out. So
I will do War of the Worlds on the channel, the whole thing, as a thing at some point soon.
Sure.
Yeah, I must do that.
Yep.
Because you're right.
So,
a lot of people won't have ever heard that before.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I saw that poll. Well, it wasn't really a poll, but there was a thing you had a week or two ago about what to do with the channel now.
Yeah.
You weren't sure.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, and I thought, I think it's probably would be great if you did maybe a spotlight, even a single song once in a while still, just to bring in some new stuff. But I like the album format. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm an album listener. You know, so I think you're on the right track. It's just trying to find that right mix, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of accidental as well. I stumbled onto it, and I don't think anybody else is doing it, which is quite helpful. It's sort of like become my sort of unique selling point, as it were. And also that it's vinyl. I don't think there's a lot of people doing sort of vinyl record players as well. So I think that's nice. It's just
they're rediscovering it though.
Say again, sorry.
You know, they've been rediscovering vinyl for sure. I mean,
yeah.
It seems like every time I turn around, there's another vinyl store opening up around here.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I don't think there's everybody else doing it on YouTube in the same way, listening to music like that. So again, it's a nice way to share, and it's so tangible. It's such a lovely thing. I
do miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to pour over the album art and go read all the lyrics. I mean, I would read all the stuff about who was on it and the engineer. I didn't know what half of that stuff was, but I still read it.
But you knew it all.
Yeah. Who did the album photography? I mean, I would read all that stuff. You know, it's funny you were talking about early musical memories. I remember my dad bought the original London cast, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Excellent.
And that was a big 4-album set and had all, you know, artwork and the whole little booklet in there. I mean, I was a kid. I mean, I must have been 4 or 5, but I can still remember going through that. I had that whole thing memorized. I still love that.
Yeah.
That, you know, that I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I have.
Years the original.
Years and years and years ago, and it's the same thing. It was the four album set, and it was my grandfather's. So you're saying you were son of a preacher. My grandfather was a Methodist minister. So we had a lot of sort of hymns and stuff and all that sort of. And his sort of take on modern music, as it were, was Jesus Christ Superstar. I think was that record.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that. I can't remember a great deal of it now, but I do remember what you're saying. Sort of being amazed by the weight of it as well. It was quite a heavy thing because there was so much record in there. And
you should. Yeah. I think you'd be interesting. If I mean, you know, I've always been this. I mean, because even as a kid, I mean, I was always, you know, I was in drama club and did plays and musicals and all that crap. You know, I mean, you know, before I was in bands, I was doing all that stuff. And so I've always enjoyed that kind of thing. And so I still like musical music. I know some people look at you funny and say, yeah, I like musicals. I like musicals. That thing is great musically. I mean, you go back and listen to it now, and it's just like, it holds up. But yeah, I still say, and I've had people argue with me, it's like nothing's better than that original London cast with Ian Gillan in there. Oh, that was the best, you know. But you know, I don't know. You know, that's the thing about music. It's just it instantly takes you to a place, or instantly gives you a feeling. Sometimes they're not good feelings. Sometimes they're, you know, but you know, it does that. It for me personally, it does that more than any other medium. You know,
it's like magic, isn't it? It is.
Yeah.
It's able to. I've said this before. It's the only thing that is able to transport you somewhere, or bring a memory to you that you'd completely forgotten, or change you from being passive into aggressive, or being aggressive into passive, or spur you on, calm you down, make you fall in love, or it was so many things. It's just there's nothing else like it. Nothing else like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There are some people they listen to the radio and they don't even know what channel they're listening to, and they don't really care. I just can't relate to that.
It's just noise in the background.
I just, I don't, I can't understand. How do you not hear that? I mentioned this morning, listen to Estonia. I haven't listened to that album for a while. That song is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, the opening, I'm just like, oh, I forgot about how great this is. And just like brings you right back. I'm a sucker for a good melody.
Are you looking forward to the new Marillion album?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I'm looking forward to every new release that's coming from anybody. Like I said, I went Tears for Fears. I couldn't wait to listen to it.
Yeah.
I'd heard a couple tracks. I'm really waiting for the new Porcupine Tree.
Ooh, aren't we all?
Oh, that Harridan was so good. Just like
again, that's divided people. I don't know if it's just like the naysayers. It doesn't sound very good. Ooh, boring. Oh, come on. What are you listening to? You're not listening to the same thing that they are.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you like it or you don't. I've had people. I get into those conversations over the Pineapple Thief.
Mm.
There are some people that are like, well, I can't listen to Pineapple Thief. It just sounds like Porcupine Tree. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't sound like Porcupine Tree at all.
No.
It's like, but
the only similarity. Well, there's more similarity now because I've got Gavin Harrison playing the drums. But the only similarity is PT. That's the initials of the name of the band.
Yeah, but I mean, personally, I think they sound completely different.
Yeah,
I think if you were 10, 20 years from now, you might put them in the same genre somewhere, but I don't think they sound alike.
Yeah, probably. But I find Pineapple Thief a real slow burn. And the music slowly unveils itself to you as the song goes along. It's not all there. A lot of Porcupine Tree. It's not instant, but it's Porcupine Tree. It's very different. It's much more soundscapey. Whereas I think the Pineapple Thief is
more of a
more like almost like Elbow in a way, a little bit. Do you know Elbow, the band?
I've heard of
little bits of it, but it's a much just a slower, gentler reveal of the music. It just sort of, as the song progresses, it's just like it's peeling layers back, and you're starting to hear more. And it's just and by the time you get to the end, you realize what an accomplished and complicated piece of music it was. But it's not apparent from the first second of it. And
lyrically, they're very different. I think of like Porcupine Tree and most of Steven Wilson's work is very much storytelling.
Mm.
Where I think the Pineapple Thief is a lot more kind of that singer-songwriter, it's more personal. It's their experience, it's their feeling. I mean, even if it's not, that's kind of what they're.
Bruce Sword is singing about me, or singing about Bruce Sword, whereas Steven Wilson is singing about you, or something he's seen, or what's going on over there. Totally, absolutely, yeah.
And I think that makes all the difference in that's the beauty of lyrics. I mean, it's odd about music that way. There are some bands where the lyrics just don't matter. It's still brilliant, but for some bands, it's like the lyrics are what sell it. Even though the musically what's happening in the background is just like fantastic, but then you throw those lyrics and the melody in with it, and you just like melts you. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you could go on and on and on about, different processes, different bands' approach, the similarities. I mean, what's similar and what's different, I mean, those two bands are a good example because they get lumped in. It's like, if you really sit down and look at it and listen to an album, just really listen to it, it's like, no, they're not even the same, but that's the fun of it.
It is.
Yep.
What are you up to for the rest of the day? You got sort of plans?
Oh boy. Well, I got to work tomorrow.
So you end up going to bed quite early, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I usually stay up till at least 8 p.m. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what ends up happening, when I was younger, I could just go to bed at 9 and get up at 1:30 and just roll with it. It's like now as this gets wider, I come home and find myself falling asleep, as soon as I sit down. Yeah. Take a lot of naps.
Yeah.
No, well, it's I don't know if you can see behind me. It's raining pretty good here. We've had been cold and dry, and all of a sudden it's just like spring's here and the rains come in. So that, which is normal for here. We have the reputation for our rain. We earn it. I don't know that we're going to do a lot tonight. Might sit down and look at a movie or something, or try to stay awake for a movie. God.
Oh, Karl, it's been amazing. It's been it's been a joy. Absolutely fantastic to talk to you.
Yeah, we have to do this again sometime. We can chat on WhatsApp anytime. So
yeah.
I know that. Well, it's good that we can at least kind of know what the. 8 hours kind of makes it easy, other than working around your daily schedule. Yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah, hope it was useful.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it is. So, thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed this. So it'll be goodbye from me, Jim. Bye-bye. It's goodbye from Karl over there. Hello, wherever you are over there. I'm not sure where you are on the screen, but and I'll see you guys on the next video, whenever and whatever that is. And until then, this is Jim and Karl. Over and out.
Out.